My name is Eliza. I'm 42, a part-time employee, and a devoted wife and mother. My life is beautifully full with my husband and our 2 sons, both in high school. Our elder son, a senior, is standing at the threshold of a new chapter, preparing for his college entrance exams. His dream is to pursue a career in law, following in the footsteps of his uncle Liam, my older brother, who has built a thriving law firm from the ground up. From a young age, my son has been inspired by Liam's achievements. He admires his uncle's unwavering dedication and the way he commands respect in the legal world. Liam, in turn, has always encouraged him, offering guidance and wisdom whenever they meet. Their bond has been heartwarming to witness, especially given the role Liam has played in my life. Liam wasn't just an older brother to me, he became a guardian figure after we lost our parents when I was still young. He shouldered responsibilities far beyond his years, ensuring I had stability and support through every stage of my life. However, our close sibling relationship took on a new dynamic when he married a woman 10 years his junior. Unlike Liam, who has always been warm and involved with family, his wife remains distant, she seldom visits, and her interactions with us are minimal at best. Whenever we do see her, she carries an air of melancholy, her expressions rarely shifting beyond quiet indifference. Even during joyous occasions, her presence feels heavy, casting an inexplicable gloom over the atmosphere. Before I married my husband, Liam was the strongest pillar in my life, guiding me through adulthood, and when I finally settled into my own marriage, he too followed suit, choosing a woman whose demeanor left us all somewhat puzzled. Initially, we had high hopes for welcoming her into the family, believing that over time, she would open up and become part of our close-knit circle. But even during their engagement and wedding, she remained reserved, her solemn presence a stark contrast to the happiness surrounding them. My husband and I tried, in our own ways, to break through her walls, offering warm compliments, engaging her in conversation, making efforts to involve her in family matters, but our attempts were met with polite yet cold responses. In private, my husband and I often discussed her distant nature, wondering whether she was truly happy in her marriage with Liam or if there was an underlying reason for her detachment. Despite this strained dynamic, my own home remained a place of warmth and connection. My husband and I cherished every moment with our boys, nurturing their dreams and guiding them through their formative years. Family meant everything to us, and we hoped that, in time, our bond with Liam's wife would improve. One evening, my husband and I visited Liam at his new home, a stunning property that was a clear testament to his success. The grandeur of the place was undeniable, yet something felt oddly hollow. My sister-in-law was noticeably absent. When my husband joked about her having abandoned ship, expecting a chuckle from Liam, the response was anything but light-hearted. With a faint, forced smile, Liam explained that she was at her parents' home, celebrating her mother's birthday. The explanation felt reasonable, but the stiffness in his tone suggested there was more beneath the surface. As the evening unfolded, Liam suddenly shifted the conversation in an unexpected direction. He fixed me with a serious gaze and asked a question that left me momentarily stunned. If, for some reason, I were unable to have children, would you consider letting me adopt one of yours? At first, I thought he was joking, an outlandish, offhand remark made in passing, but the solemnity in his expression told me otherwise. My breath caught in my throat, my mind racing to process his words. My husband, sensing the tension, responded with an easygoing laugh. Who knows what the future holds? We can cross that bridge when we get to it, if we're all comfortable with it. Though his answer was meant to diffuse the weight of the moment, I couldn't shake the unease settling deep in my chest. Liam's request lingered in my mind long after that evening, making me question the underlying issues in his marriage. Over the years, I had noticed a pattern. Whenever Liam visited us, he was alone. Conversations about his wife had become nearly non-existent, as if she were fading into the background of his life. Then, months later, we celebrated a proud milestone, our eldest son's acceptance into his dream law school. It was a joyous occasion, filled with laughter, pride, and excitement, but amidst the celebration, Liam brought up the topic of adoption once more. This time, there was an urgency in his voice, a quiet desperation that hadn't been there before. He and his wife had been struggling with infertility. My husband, ever the jokester, responded with a light-hearted remark, "Well, maybe you should take our eldest, he's already on the path to law like you." He laughed, but I remained silent, my mind whirring with the weight of Liam's words. Could I ever consider something so profound? Would my son even entertain such a thought? And, more importantly, why was Liam bringing this up again, especially now? I needed clarity. One evening, I decided to approach Liam privately, choosing my words carefully as I broached the subject. Have you spoken to your wife about this? I asked. Is this something she's open to? Liam's lips curled into a wry smile. Don't fret over her, he said simply. We've discussed it already. Though his words were meant to reassure me, they didn't. Something felt off, and I wasn't ready to make any decisions. I decided that, if this conversation ever became serious, my sons had to be involved in the discussion. Before I had time to fully process my thoughts, everything took a dramatic turn. One afternoon, I received an urgent call from Liam's law firm. He had collapsed at work and had been rushed to the hospital. My heart pounded as panic set in. I hurried to the hospital, where his staff stood anxiously in the waiting area, but there was one glaring absence: his wife. No one had been able to reach her. Desperate to contact her, I searched through Liam's belongings and found his smartphone. With my younger son's help, we unlocked it and found her number. I called, and when she finally answered, her tone was sharp and defensive. I warned you not to call again. I'll take legal action if you keep harassing me. Her words threw me off, but I quickly cut in. It's Eliza, Liam's sister. He collapsed. He's in the hospital. There was a pause. Her voice immediately softened. Oh. I'm terribly sorry. I thought you were someone else. You said he collapsed. I explained his condition, expecting urgency. Instead, she responded with unsettling indifference. I'm unable to come right now. I have prior commitments. Please keep me informed. She ended the call before I could say anything else. Days passed. Liam remained unconscious, his condition critical, and yet, his wife never visited. When I called her again nearly a week later, her response chilled me to the core. What's the matter? Is he dead? Something inside me snapped. He's still alive, I said, barely masking my anger. Why haven't you come to see him? Her tone was dismissive. I'm not a doctor. There's nothing I can do. I ended the call, my hands trembling. That was the moment it all clicked. Liam's sudden desire to adopt one of my sons, his distant wife, the underlying tension in their marriage. My husband's words rang in my ears. If Liam dies, everything goes to her. They don't have children. And then, a thought I could hardly bear to consider surfaced. Was Liam trying to ensure that his legacy, the life he built, would go to someone he trusted, rather than to a woman who barely seemed to care if he lived or died? Taking the lead in organizing my brother's funeral was a responsibility I shouldered with a heavy heart. Fortunately, I wasn't alone. I had the unwavering support of the law firm staff, who stood by me throughout the entire process. Their dedication ensured that everything proceeded smoothly, from arranging the venue to handling the overwhelming number of guests. While I focused on giving my brother the dignified farewell he deserved, my husband voiced his concerns about the future of the law firm. He worried that, without my brother at the helm, its success would wane. However, my brother had been a meticulous planner. Prior to his passing, he had already put measures in place to secure the firm's continuity. With careful foresight, he had entrusted the firm's management to a highly capable individual, someone who would ensure that the company remained strong, operating efficiently as a corporation. The funeral itself was an immense affair, far grander than I had initially anticipated. A seemingly endless stream of mourners arrived, paying their respects to my late brother. Among them were presidents of major corporations, prominent politicians, and other influential figures, all of whom had, in some way, been touched by his wisdom and generosity. Their presence was a powerful testament to the lasting impact he had left on so many lives. As I stood amidst the mourners, listening to heartfelt eulogies and watching people bow their heads in remembrance, I couldn't help but reflect on the incredible person my brother had been. Despite his success, he had remained kind, humble, and devoted to those he cared about. It was a bittersweet realization, one that filled me with both pride and an aching sorrow. Throughout the funeral, my eldest son assisted me diligently, helping to ensure that everything went as planned. However, I noticed a shift in his demeanor as the service continued. His expression darkened, his hands clenched into fists. Finally, as the weight of the moment pressed down on him, he muttered under his breath, his voice tinged with bitterness. "I should have been the one adopted," he said, his tone laced with regret. His words took me aback, but I understood where they came from. Seeing the immense legacy my brother had built, My son was struck by just how remarkable his uncle had been. It was only natural that he would feel this way, especially knowing that my brother had once considered adopting him. My husband and I exchanged a look, sharing in our son's unspoken sorrow. We knew this was a realization that would stay with him for a long time. The service continued, and as I carried my brother's casket as a pallbearer, I couldn't help but notice something peculiar. No one mentioned my sister-in-law's absence. It wasn't a topic of discussion, nor did anyone seem to be wondering about her whereabouts. It was as if she didn't exist in their eyes. That's when it struck me, perhaps many of the attendees weren't even aware that my brother had been married. After all, he and his wife had never held a formal wedding ceremony. There had only been a honeymoon, a private affair that few had known about. Reflecting on this, a pang of regret settled in my chest. If only they hadn't married at all, perhaps we wouldn't be in this situation, one where a wife couldn't even be bothered to attend her husband's funeral. As the ceremony drew to a close, another regret weighed heavily on me. I should have allowed my brother to adopt my younger son sooner. If I had, things might have turned out differently. Now, with my sister-in-law still lurking in the background, I feared that she would attempt to claim control over his vast estate, something I was determined to prevent. In an effort to bring closure and unity after such an emotional day, I invited everyone to gather at my brother's house for a meal. Standing before them, I took a deep breath before addressing the room. "Thanks to all of you, my brother can now rest in peace," I said, my voice heavy with emotion. Just as we were beginning to settle into a somber yet peaceful atmosphere, an unexpected and unwelcome presence disrupted the moment. My sister-in-law made her grand entrance. Clad in an ostentatious pink coat, she strode into the room with an air of self-importance, as if she had timed her arrival to coincide with the funeral's conclusion. Her appearance was jarring, her bright attire a stark contrast to the subdued black clothing worn by the rest of us. The moment I laid eyes on her, suspicion gnawed at my gut. I wasted no time confronting her. "Why have you chosen this moment to come?" I demanded, my voice steady despite my rising anger. She responded with a smug, wide grin, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. "As my husband's wife, I inherit his $95 million estate along with this house. With no children in the picture, everything belongs to me." Her audacious declaration triggered an unexpected reaction. Instead of the stunned silence she likely anticipated, a few of my brother's colleagues chuckled, their laughter laced with amusement. Confused, I looked around, wondering what they found so funny. That's when one of the lawyers stepped forward, delivering a revelation that left my sister-in-law utterly blindsided. "We're aware that you're officially divorced," he stated matter-of-factly. A stunned silence fell over the room. I turned to her, my eyes widening in shock. "You were divorced?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She stiffened, her expression darkening as she realized the truth had been exposed. Another lawyer added with a knowing smirk, "The divorce was finalized the day before Liam's sudden collapse." The color drained from my sister-in-law's face. She turned to glare at the people who had revealed this information, her anger barely concealed beneath the surface. "And from what I've heard," another lawyer chimed in, "you were ordered to pay alimony due to the affair that led to your divorce." Her composure snapped. "I'm not obligated to pay alimony anymore," she shot back defiantly. "There's no one left to pay." But she was quickly corrected. "The right to alimony transfers upon inheritance. That means you'll still owe it to Eliza, the sole inheritor." Everything clicked into place in that moment. With their divorce finalized and our parents gone, I was the last remaining family member. That meant I was the sole inheritor of my brother's vast estate. Realization dawned in her eyes, followed by panic. She turned to me, her gaze sharp and filled with resentment. "Don't I deserve half of the estate now that the divorce is settled?" she challenged. One of the lawyers shook his head. "Didn't Liam provide you with a financial settlement upon finalization of the divorce?" "I have the receipt certificate." Another added, "He also acquired this house before the marriage, so it isn't subject to property division." Desperate, she tried to latch onto another source of wealth. A sly smirk crossed her lips. "There's still the life insurance," she said confidently. "I should be the beneficiary." But her confidence was short-lived. A lawyer promptly corrected her. "Liam was meticulous. It's highly likely he changed the beneficiary upon finalizing the divorce." Later, as I sifted through my brother's belongings, I came across his life insurance policy. My sister-in-law spotted it and lunged, snatching the document from my hands. She scanned it eagerly, her fingers trembling as she searched for her name. Her face fell, shoulders slumping, she handed the certificate back to me in defeat. I glanced at it, the beneficiary was me. Realizing her futile efforts, she muttered bitterly, I married a lawyer thinking he was wealthy, but all I got was a tiny inheritance, and now I have to scrape by on little alimony. It's a huge mistake. She had lost everything, and soon, she would face justice for her other misdeeds. Meanwhile, my family moved into the spacious home my brother had left behind. My eldest son, inspired by my brother's work ethic, devoted himself to his law studies with newfound determination. As for my younger son, he half joked, I wish uncle had adopted me so I could have inherited everything. But in his eyes, I saw a genuine longing.